We're also from higher education institution. We're from Nottingham Trent University, but we're actually talking about the other side of work experience. So not sending our students out into the world of work, but getting students from schools and colleges between about 14 and 18 in to the university. So we're acting more as an employer as opposed to a student provider, I suppose. So it's nice to kind of have the two different sides of it. As I said, my name's Esther. I work in the schools, colleges and community outreach team. My primary role is going out into schools and colleges in the local area and across the country and helping to raise aspirations in students, particularly from WP backgrounds, to get them into universities. So we help them with choosing their universities, doing their research, financial applications, all of that kind of thing. And my other hat, my other role, and the side of my job that I love the most is I also run the work experience programme for Nottingham Trent University, so getting the students to come into the university. My colleague Dan as well, he'll probably introduce himself in a little minute, but he's one of my favourite ever placement supervisors in the university, and we're going to talk, I'm just going to give a brief overview of what we do in general with the work experience programme, and then Dan's going to talk about the programme that he runs in the astronomy area. So we're going to go through the introduction, the destination. Dan's going to talk through the journeys which make up part of Dan's placement that he offers, and then also we'll summarise at the end. So basically then, the NTU Work Experience Programme is something I'm incredibly passionate about and feel very lucky to be able to look after for our university. There's a quote up there which I actually realise is mine from a few years ago. And basically what I kind of feel about the university and the work experience that we offer is that we're in an absolute unique opportunity to have students with us on work experience in so many different departments, experience so many different things that they are able to do with us using so many different pieces of equipment, dealing with experts in so many different fields. And it's an untapped resource really, because not many universities, if any at all, offer university placements to younger students coming in. So we feel very, very privileged the fact that we're able to have students with us so they don't just experience the world of work, we also have an opportunity to raise their aspirations for higher education as well. So a little bit of history on the programme. I started out in 08-09 and we started out with just 10 placements and we offered 18 students placements during the year. That has risen over the last couple of years to last year in 10-11 we offered 26 different placements, so that's 26 placement areas throughout the university to a total number of 50 students. So it was quite a nice turnover last year with students in. This year so far we're offering 28 placements and we've placed 18 students so far, but obviously the year is still very young, so we're hoping to blast past 50 and hopefully get towards 60 this year. So the placements, there's a little summary of some of them that we offer. They're not all on there, but you can see that they go from areas such as administrative areas and support teams. Then there's ones in astronomy and science outreach, which is what Dan's going to talk about. There's also placements in our construction quality management assistant team, so they'll be dealing with estates and resources. And then on the other side of that, they can also go into our School of Architecture, Design and Built Environment. They can work in the workshops. We have forensic assistants. They can come in and work in our forensic teams. They get totally clothed in their little white suits and their little blue masks, and they pad around and destroy evidence and things, which is a great experience. Fashion design, that's another one of our very popular placements. Our fashion design course is an incredibly popular course at undergraduate level. So students get to come along and they work with second-year undergrad students for a week on a project, and they learn all about computer-aided design, and they find out about the graduate degree shows and all those kind of things that are just really, really inspirational. Also, we have placements in IT, in our libraries, in microbiology, in our psychology research assistant. For that one, they'll come along and they have a week-long placement that has a project set for them describing the emotional relationship that we have with trees. I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot of what our students do when they get on these placements, because they do get so involved in the work with the academic teams, with the support teams, and a lot of the opportunities comes from them working with such a diverse range of people. So basically what the whole thing about our work experience placement and what I'm continually trying to get out there is that higher education is a massively untapped source of placement. They've got so much to offer under one roof, and because we've taken it upon us to channel all that through a central point of contact and a central process for having students apply and then everything being looked after by the same place, it works really smoothly. Yes, it took some setting up and it takes some managing, but it's all very possible. So we kind of, if you were to go away today and kind of book your HEI, local HEI, into maybe offering some work experience, we'd be very supportive of that. So we can offer opportunities in academic areas and support services. They get insight into different teaching and learning styles, because yes, they are there on work experience, but whilst they're there, we also get the very lucky privilege of being able to influence them about how they're going to take their education on in the future as well. And they get to learn about how their learning styles are going to be right for them. If they like the academic learning styles, if they like vocational learning styles, they get a chance to try that out. And also, of course, whilst they're here, they get an insight into the university as well, so they see the facilities firsthand, and they often get to play around with a lot of the different equipment, as I was saying earlier. They can attend lectures as well. I had one student who was on the psychology research assistant placement, and in her evaluation form on the end, her shining achievement was that she went along to a second-year undergrad seminar and understood what they were talking about. When you read that on an evaluation form, you get goosebumps. Also, they get to interact with lecturers, undergraduates and postgraduate students, which is great because it takes that fear away of university being this big, scary place, and they get to interact with so many people. And Dan will talk a little bit about that in a minute. And also, they can take part in research with contribution knowledge in publications, and that's true with both Dan's placement and with the psychology placement. They've both had things published in real-life research publications, and it's something that they can take away with them and be very proud of afterwards. So I'll just give you a little example timetable. This is actually for a student who was based with Dan, Ashley, and it gives you a little example of the kind of things that they get up to. So we've got all of the set the scene, we've got the induction and the meeting, and we've got a review again at the end. Loads of introductions to different projects and different processes as part of this placement. Then also, if you're seeing the two dark purple sections, they attend 2 lectures, which is a fantastic experience for them. And then on the Wednesday, they go out on a field trip, and this is the project that Dan's going to speak about. Spend all day on that, and they come back and then analyse what they've learned and go through some critical thinking after that as well. So that's it from me. I'm going to hand over to Dan now.
Thank you very much. So, I'm Dan Brown. I'm, as Esther said, the astronomer. So actually, I'm the astronomy outreach officer, professional astronomy by trade, but involve a lot of my work into outreach and working with students on there. And part of the talk will also incorporate my own journey, because I think we also have to remember, if we take placement students, we develop ourselves. If we go on to this journey, we further our education as well. In part, that's absolutely right for my case. I've introduced into my placement archaeology. So actually the placements my students do are archaeoastronomy. So they deal with a certain monument or landscape and try to interpret it in astronomy terms. So one area I work with my students on, and I'm just picking out one from the plethora of different ones. You might have noticed there's a poster that's not associated with the Warwick scheme hanging in the corner in the other room number 7 that is, and that's drawing a few of the projects together by 2 of my project students that designed a poster, so that gives you a bit of a broader idea. But on this one, I'm targeting a area in the National Peak Park District, which is located here, Nottingham being here, so not too far away. It's a fairly remote place, so actually quite interesting to see how the students deal with these rural, remote environments. But it's not too remote to be inaccessible. We can approach it in an hour's drive and we're there. And the fascinating thing is that this landscape has an unbelievable amount of archaeology, ancient history and heritage on site, so they can interact with that and work on that and critically reflect on that and see what the impacts are on society in general. The motivation from my point of view when I started this off, that this area is something where I do a lot of my outreach work with schools, with teachers as well. So I was hoping that with my placement students, I could get them to develop some CPD resources. working together with my colleague on the landscape management scheme. He's a lecturer and he needs some more resources for virtual field trips. So I thought, ideal, we're going out there, we'll collect that stuff. So that's what I was hoping as well. And actually, if you go to this area, you can see they approach this plateau, which is overlooking the Derwent Valley. And this just shows a few old field boundaries that are there. But then there's a huge boundary that's definitely not modern. This is actually part of a Neolithic enclosure, so 4,000 years old minimum, with loads of other features on there. And this whole site has been analysed nearly 10 years ago by the Sheffield Gardens Edge project, so this is all in part archaeologically analysed. So this has led for us to work on this enclosure, this Stone Age enclosure, on some of the roundhouses, but also we came across one standing stone, which is located here, and out of the work, completely unintentional, we discovered that we can further this work and focus specifically on this little area that's been, in a sense, overlooked by the Sheffield Gardens Edge Archaeology Project. So they've not dealt with that at all. And we've brought up a whole new interpretation, brought up by working with the placement students together. And before I talk too much about that myself, I've brought my placement students in a can along. So I've got our project websites, which contain loads of stuff and is becoming more of a monster than something that's easily maneuverable. But on there, there's also a little video of one of our students he's shot to visualize, not for me, not for him, but for the next student who's coming in, what you can see on the site. And I hope this will work.
So we've just arrived at the car park at Gardens Edge. We're going to be heading down the road and then cutting up, so we go kind of that way behind us.
Then we walk up onto the site until we arrive at the actual site of the standing stone.
We're at the stone now, pretty much. There it is, standing stone. As you can see, well, that's the north side of the thing, which is pretty much covered in moss and stuff, loads, due to doesn't really get any sun except midsummer-ish.
So, and this part he's elaborating on is exactly this astronomical alignment we've discovered in this standing stone, that it only receives light on the north-facing side during the summer. And this is a seasonal illumination effect intentionally achieved by the erectors of the standing stone 4,000 years ago. And I think probably the most striking bit.
Did you enjoy it up here, or?
Yeah. It's been great. Time's kind of slipped away from us.
So, don't know if you could hear that time sort of slipped away from us. So that's always a good thing to show that they've really engaged, because this is such a bizarre, remote place. We come across, maybe, I go up there with my students, from 5 students, maybe one of them actually encounters some other people walking on the site. Okay, so that's the actual site where we send our students out with myself working. And what do the students then actually do, or what's their journey and the placement? So I've tried to give you a reflection of a single student's journey, but it can link together into how 2 students, for example, do this journey jointly, or how many students interact together and explore a whole new dimension in their journey. So we started off exploring this site with one of our first placement students, and we gave him a small project that he could work on the site. We gave him an initial brief. He developed that beforehand. You might have seen on the timetable there are slots where they can field test the equipment and go out in a very defined setting on campus, test it, and then when it's all fine, then we go out, take them into the site, and he actually then measured for us the tilt of this slope of the stone, and that's the first time where this student project then brought up the idea that this tilt could be somehow important, actually point out an astronomical alignment. To proceed then, as we both analyze from this possible astronomical alignment to something where we can really analyze it, we needed a 3D model. So actually what we needed is somebody to come up with an idea, how can we develop a three-dimensional model with a piece of string, water, pipes, and a tape measure. And that's Natty at the moment, one of the few students that never set foot on the site. He did all the work in the lab, was absolutely amazed by how fantastic he could apply his mathematical skills and knowledges towards trying to solve the problem of how to map. In this case, he was looking at just the plain chair you can see in the background and how to create a three-dimensional model in Google SketchUp. So he developed all the theory behind that, which was then used for the second student that came in who linked with that project, and that was Richard, who came out with me and actually then used this method, developed a theory, tested a small method of taking it out into a complete rugged, rocky landscape and measuring something in situ. So he developed how to level reference points, and we went out, and with his help, we surveyed the stone and developed a three-dimensional model that then led us to analyze the stone in more precision, and then we came up with a set case that this stone is astronomically aligned, put that forward to the scientific community, and that was actually taken up quite nicely. And through these presentations, this is putting not only forward to my colleague or so, this was putting it forward to international archaeoastronomical meeting, and the people were there from all four corners of the world feeding back to me and saying, well, we believe this also sounds fine. We've just got a few queries. Is the stone really intentionally set up? Okay, rather than saying yes, no, I took that back, went to the students and said, well, with the next slot, this is the project. They read up on that and said, well, actually, the science community said, we don't really believe that this is intentionally set up. How could we find this out? And I initially gave them some ideas, what they could do. There are some parts where they interact with some of my archaeology colleagues, and they then came up with having to survey the sites to properly see if the stones have some kind of distribution, supporting packing stones. Other students came in and then, based upon some of the work of the surveying, then came up maybe there are some materials buried under the site, so they did some magnetic divergence and magnetic disturbance surveys. Then coming in from a more geology point of view, they then looked at if this stone is placed here, it should be maybe not what we call a glacial erratic, it should be untypical to this site. So we went out and then analyzed certain stones, but actually in this case used results from the standing stone survey that was done before, used some of the magnetic data as well, and furthered some of the work that Daniel did beforehand and created a more wholesome, more detailed model of the surroundings. All of this now is taken again forwards to the research community, to the scientific community, and we're at the stage now where we're seeking for funding to get an archaeological dig on site to support if that stone was set up there. But based on the work of these three students that worked as a team together, they based their work on these two students that were closely linked on supporting each other's work based on an initial finding from a student 2 years ago. So this is each student's journey linked into a general student's journey going through. And I think really, really fantastic is here that we managed to tailor parts of their project towards what they wanted to do. Some of them were more interested in the geology aspect, some more in the astronomy aspect. As a university, we have the capability to draw on these resources and not get somebody full-time behind it, but at least to expose them for 1 hour with this colleague of ours. And the key thing is this loop, this building upon and looking on the project so far. They're actually reflecting on what they've done on site. And this is really, really important for the students to then develop their reflective skills. Now, if you go then from these students, they were pre-16, just some of them a little bit older than 16, going towards some of our university undergraduates. I work with them as well. They're a bit longer there. The students, the pre-16, around about 16 students are with me a week. These undergraduate students come to me and work roughly 5 weeks with me. And on this project, we follow up on some of these things. We try to develop more resources. Because they're undergraduates, they've got a bit more time to work with us and a bit more diverse range of skills. So in this case, we could actually try to go out into site, and rather than developing a small-scale 3D model, developing a whole panorama view of some of the sites we visited, and embed that into planetarium software. And this is just a small snapshot of a real environment where you can barely see it on the screen. It works fantastic. It's just a projector that's a bit sparse at the moment. And you can really see in real time the stars above the side. So you're linking astronomy and landscape together. But with these IT resources, we could then go out in the next year, and rather than focusing getting all the IT resources to work for a site like this, go out with one of our students, Mitesh, and actually go to the site, collect more data, but use a visit to the site to explore it in more depth. Now, on these stones, you might just make out a cross carved on there. This site was the site of a medieval hermit, so this site has a completely different inhabitant 500 years ago, where you actually have somebody who was living there, got pittance and was offering prayers to people moving around and traveling there. Mitesh also developed some resources, but not only purely astronomical ones, but also very simple written sort of documents, fake documents in a sense, trying to awaken the empathy for who was living there before in a ye-old written style, so people could put their minds into and think how people would have lived there. And to support that, you could then use stellarium and include constellations and stars that would have more been used at that time by people living on the site. So again, you're engaging on a far more critical level, on a deeper level with this landscape. See who used it, why did they use it, what sort of impact did their usage have to the wider community. But this is the point, dealing with undergraduates, we can now explore this critical thinking into more depth. And I think this supports fantastically scientific literacy. Not only the skills, not only the knowledge, but also sort of the ethos, the critical thinking, the evaluation, the reflectiveness, which is key towards that, sort of giving you a broad understanding, where do I fit in with all my work? And all of that has obviously an impact, because if we think about all this deeper layer of how it links into society, this is now where my placement student is working on at the moment, is developing dark sky discovery sites. So he's visiting some of the car parks using the resources and methods set up by the student before, who's used resources tuned by a student 2 years ago to build up a support and environment for visitors coming to the Peak District, for example, who want to explore the stars, but also want to see what's happened here, who lived here before, what's the environment like, has the environment changed. And now I think a quite special journey is in the journey of the university lecturers or the university staff in general that's been working with these students. I, for myself, coming from the pure astronomy background, didn't have a lot of knowledge of landscape history. That was a general interest. I needed to support that more. So actually, when I was endeavoring my journey along with the placement students, working together with them and working together with other colleagues, I could support my knowledge in landscape history. I could see how having these different disciplines working together, you can actually support your own research and grow as an individual and develop your learning further. And especially, I think, for me, it's also supported my research projects. At the moment, my entire research is only running through these kinds of projects. So rather than thinking, oh my God, this will cause loads of havoc of work, that's it, I can't do any work whatsoever. Actually, for me, that meant I can do work, I can publish, and I can go out together with my work placement students, because 8 placement students per year that I get, only these are the pre-16 ones. That's nearly 2 months where I'm working together with them on this project. And one small thing is supporting university policy. That means some of these sites that we dealt with are justifying the continual usage of facilities in the university, which is key for our university to justify why they should keep these facilities. So it ties into a bigger picture in the university as well. But that's my point of view. Andy, the landscape historian that deals with the landscape management project, he's explored through working with me more the astronomy as well, and has the chance to then publish together with myself and resources from the students towards the scientific community. And both of us have sort of explored this interdisciplinary approach. And in the side, you get then the support from technicians and other sides coming in, giving you, I've called it technological innovations, just new ideas you not have thought of, or he's a passionate kite flyer, so he's got sort of a small kite that he brings onto site, and we've used that as well for some of our survey work. So a quite new way to bring together all different perspectives in there. So these are these three journeys. And if I sort of sum that together, we've got the students, and they're all together sort of as one journey, individual, but also together. But then we've also got the undergraduates on their journey. And we've got us lecturers and university staff on our own journey. But actually, this is coming then to the whole idea of communities of practice. We're all together in this. We're all interlinked. And this is maybe where I'm picking up on the legitimate peripheral participation, where we're thinking of peripheral. Actually, rather than thinking of peripheral being something on the edge, I'm thinking of peripheral as something that gives you the opportunity to look out. If you're centered, you're surrounded by your own discipline and are isolated, but if you're on the periphery, you're open to all others. So this is sort of the interconnection that is really important. And we all together can then start negotiating a meaning, can all together try to understand the importance of this landscape, or the standing stone, or any kind of other project you would want to make sense of. And it is the social interactions that's important. We can tell students you will get this out. We can give them forms which will list these key facts. That's just knowledge. Knowledge doesn't lead to transformation. It's actions, interactions, experiences. They form transformation. We want to transform and allow students to become actively forming their career. And it's this new environment. We're out in the field. We're in the real world. We're not stuck in a seminar room and a classroom. We don't have to bend backwards to draw everything in. We're going out. We're showing them you can use your maths that you've learned for A-level here, because you can then estimate how much volume has been moved. If you move that much volume per day, how many people would you need to move all this volume? So you can embed that in a real environment. But all of this fits into the larger picture of, I've put in the Peak District as community, I've put in teachers. They've used our resources. They've used what we've learned on site. I've put in a museum. It's used some of our resources, Mitesh's work, and some of the work that we're going to hand out that you can look at, to actually use for their exhibition. And I've put the Dark Sky group that's supporting the push for a Dark Sky Reserve of National Peak Park. So we're actually supporting the several different community groups as well with our work. And this is the part that actually all of this fits into a much larger context of the entire society. And one point I might have not mentioned too deeply is that this journey never ends. You are always a continuous learner. You always continue on your path, trying to learn more and to improve your understanding of the world. That will ever change, therefore you can never stop to be a learner. So the special way of really approaching these sites is what I call critical place-based learning. So that picks up two aspects of re-inhabiting and decolonizing, trying to value what's interesting, what's important in the landscape that you can identify yourself with before you then go out and cause transformation. Because not all transformation is good just because of transformation's sake. You have to evaluate what you want to conserve. And all of that, in the end, hopefully leads to supporting sustainability, but also on a grander scale by supporting a versatile, a flexible, and a critical thinking workforce. So in a summary, hopefully you can see placements are a success at our university in many different areas. If you don't offer a university placements, you're really missing out. And fantastic that you mentioned communities of practice. That's exactly what I wanted to bang on about. It's embracing this whole idea from going out into linking many different of our projects into resources, publications in the media, publications in scientific journals, and linking it with society as well. So I've just put up our contact details and two of our websites. If you want to hear the interview or listen to more resources and whatever, that's all on our archaeoproject.pbworks website. All of our projects, students write something up on there, and everything's on there basically. It's just to try and hunt it down, because every student creates their own little environment on there. Thank you very much.